one.
Well, good evening, everybody. It's 7 o'clock Central, 6 o'clock Mountain. You're watching News Channel Nebraska. You're also watching a Northeast Nebraska Growing Together presentation, of course, sponsored in part by the Exarban Foundation. Good evening. My name is Mike Flood, and I am, in addition to being the District 19 state senator serving all of Madison and a portion of Stanton County, I'm also affiliated with an effort by Northeast Nebraska business and education and agriculture leaders called Growing Together. Growing Together is an effort to really do a couple things. One is to increase the number of people living in the region, to combat rural depopulation, and to provide opportunities to 20-somethings and 30-year-olds and people at any stage of life so that they can find high-paying, quality jobs that not only pay a good wage, but use skills that we are working to constantly improve in our workforce. And that is our mission. Tonight, and the main reason that we are here holding a town hall is to discuss the topic of economic development. There's a lot of people that ask questions, especially of elected leaders, and they want to know, what exactly are you doing to create jobs? And what kind of jobs are you going to create? Tonight, we're talking to a couple different audiences. You may be somewhere in Nebraska interested in starting a business. Maybe you've got an idea that you can use technology to solve a problem and you need the seed funding to get started, to take a chance and to see where it goes. Maybe you're in manufacturing and you work every day in manufacturing and you keep your skills up and you can fix things and you have ideas about processes that can be improved. That's certainly part of this. And quite possibly you're watching tonight and you have a loved one looking for a high-paying job, a quality job, or a way to improve where they're at. And you'd like us to know about them and what they do. Well, there's going to be an opportunity for you to share that with us as well. I want to begin by introducing all of the folks that are going to be on our panel tonight. This is a one-of-a-kind meeting where we do everything through the power of computers on Zoom, and we have several guests that I want to start with. We'll have them just say a quick hello as we introduce them. We're going to start with Dan Hoffman. Dan is from Lincoln, Nebraska. He runs Invest Nebraska. You're going to find out more about it. Dan joins us tonight from his home office in Lincoln. Thanks for being on, Dan.
Hey, thank you, Mike. Just a little bit, Invest Nebraska, we partner with the Department of Economic Development in developing more economic development around the technology sector in Nebraska.
Also with us tonight, we're lucky to have Tullen Mabott. Tullen is from North Platte, Nebraska originally. He's been in banking, but he has been running his own company, and you're going to find out more about his story coming up. He also joins us tonight on our program from Lincoln, Nebraska.
Yes, thank you, Mike. Glad to be here. I'm the CFO of Company Cam. Company Cam offers a documentation tool for contractors.
You're going to find out more about that here in just a little bit. Also tonight, we have the city administrator of the city of Norfolk, Nebraska, to talk about not only what their priorities are as it relates to economic development, but also what it takes to recruit ag tech and some exciting updates on a business that works in ag tech that's going to be located in Norfolk. Andy Colvin, welcome.
Thank you, Mike. It's my pleasure to be here tonight, and I look forward to talking a little bit more about economic development in the Norfolk area and Madison County and letting you know about some of the exciting things going on.
Also tonight, we have with us a Tilden, Nebraska native who is joining us from Boston, Massachusetts tonight. He owns his own business called Start Something LLC, grew up on a farm in western Madison and eastern Antelope County. We want to welcome Josh Dietrich is with us tonight from Boston. Josh, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me on tonight, Mike. As Mike mentioned, first off, I hope it's warming up at home there a little bit. I've heard it's been brutal. But thanks again. And my company, Start Something, is a early stage hard tech startup advisor. So we help early stage companies like Andy's and Tullen to help put the right resources together to get them through the first stages of their product development.
All right. And I also want to welcome with us the president of Northeast Community College, Dr. Leah Barrett, working on a Sunday night from her office at the college, Northeast, a true partner in economic development for our region, and not just in ag, but in manufacturing and general education. Dr. Barrett, thank you and welcome.
Thank you very much for letting me join you all tonight. I look forward to the conversation. Northeast Community College serves a 20-county service area, and we serve about 13,000 students a year, with about 6,000 of those earning or taking courses for credit, and then about 7,000 people that we work with in the non-credit space. So it's great to be here and talk about one of my favorite topics, which is entrepreneurial spirit. So thanks.
Well, thank you very much, Dr. Barrett. Well, we have plenty of folks to talk to. This program ends right sharply at 8 o'clock. And I wanted to give you a little background as to why we decided to hold a town hall on this topic. And there will be time for your questions later on in the program. So if you've got them, you can send them to us several ways. You'll be able to send them to us on Facebook with a message if you're watching in that way. And then we'll put up an email address here in a little bit where you can send emails to and get those questions answered as well. Okay, so why are we doing this and what is this about? As a state senator in the legislature, one of the number one missions of our state government and of your elected officials is how do we create more opportunities, not only to bring people back that grew up in the area, but to create the kind of jobs that pay well enough that people can have the kind of life that they want and that they can enjoy working and living in Northeast Nebraska and the rest of the state, by extension to all the members of the legislature. And for the longest time, in my opinion, and when I was in the legislature the first time, to be honest, it was about recruiting manufacturing, recruiting any kind of multi-employee business that would locate from a different part of the nation or create a branch office or expand in their current space. And there has been a change since I last left the legislature, that it was really brewing toward the late 2000s. And it doesn't mean that we don't still work to recruit any kind of business to the area, but we're now dealing with a new kind of economic development. And a lot of people hear about this and they ask me questions like, how does it work? Or what is ag tech? Or what is this all about? And I remember the first time I heard about it, I thought, how would that ever work? And basically, if I had to summarize it for somebody and ask me the question, the way the information economy works now is that people who have ideas that solve problems using technology are creating a lot of value, and they're hiring a lot of people. For instance, in places like Boston, Austin, San Jose, Chicago, Philadelphia, communities all over our nation, there are innovators that come up with ideas like Uber. If you look at Uber, basically what happened is you have the dispatcher, the taxi cab driver, and then you have the person that wants the ride. Uber allows you to go on your phone, cut out the dispatcher, cut out the taxi driver, and make any car driving by a possible ride for you. And by disintermediating that supply chain, Uber has created a lot of value and has made a lot of money. And one of the things that comes out of technology driven by that is obviously high valuations and the idea that we can grow employees. What we're talking about tonight is, what is Nebraska's opportunity in the information economy, and how can we create jobs? And I'd argue that we have more entrepreneurs living in rural areas of America than we do in our large cities, because we have men and women that grew up on farms. They're either farming now, or they're working in a different business, or they're the children of farmers, and they innovate for a living. When something breaks down on a Sunday, they don't call and get parts. They figure out a workaround to get them to the next day. And that's the very spirit of what the new economy wants for value. So to start this discussion, I want to introduce again Dan Hoffman. He is the president of Invest Nebraska. Now, this nonprofit corporation that works in hand in glove with the state government was actually started by the legislature and Governor Mike Johanns back in 2002. And about 2009, 10, and 11, this idea of entrepreneurship started. And I'm going to let Dan explain what Invest Nebraska does and why it's important and what their plans are as it relates to being in Northeast Nebraska. Dan?
Yep. Thank you again, Mike. I'm going to share my screen here. Can you see that okay?
Yes, we can.
All right. Well, just a little bit back to Mike's comment about the organization. So Invest Nebraska was founded in 2002 at the request of Governor Mike Johanns. And one of the things the Governor Johanns saw at the time was Nebraska ranked last in the nation for companies attracting risk capital or venture capital. And so the thought was we need an organization that can act as an intermediary between entrepreneurs with those great ideas and the funders of those great ideas. And the organization was founded. And as Mike mentioned, back in about 2010, 2011, the Department of Economic Development undertook a study to look at what else should Nebraska be doing to create more entrepreneurs, create more innovators in the state of Nebraska. And as a result of that, Invest Nebraska partnered with the Nebraska Department of Economic Development to help administer what was passed as the Nebraska Business Innovation Act. And so we always say for Invest Nebraska, we have three legs of our stool. One is we actually go ahead and make investments in startup companies in Nebraska. And that investment looks like equity. So we are part owners of the company, or convertible debt. And as a result, though, we have to be matched by other private investors. And then we also just offer just what we call operational assistance to help entrepreneurs. And then also developing more ecosystem building in the state of Nebraska. But for our investments, we, just like all investors, we want to get a return on those investments, but we also want to further economic development in the state. And so I think backing up a little bit to what Mike's comment, there's been a change in economic development probably over the last 10 years to something also called technology-based economic development, or TBED. And TBED is really looking at your own backyard, your own region, to determine how can you help your businesses, how constantly innovate, but also coming up with new ideas. And TBED, there's various elements, but these are the five main elements around technology-based economic development. Some is a research base, sort of what's going on at Northeast Community College, transferring that knowledge into the market, creating an entrepreneurial ecosystem or culture, and developing risk capital mechanisms, and then also that technical skilled workforce.
Dan, make sure you change
look at both traditional economic development, which I believe is what most individuals are familiar with, and TBED. We start to see that there's some differences between the two approaches, being more on the physical assets that exist in that region or in that state, and moving more towards a knowledge-based economy with clusters, entrepreneurship, innovation. But the key value offerings between the two types of economic development methods, one is, as we all know, about tax incentives, which have been around in Nebraska since 1987.
Hey, Dan, this is Mike Flood.
TBED, there are no tax incentives because a lot of these companies don't have any tax liabilities. And so for those businesses, they look at what kind of risk capital or pre-seed capital exists, what's the workforce look like, and also what's the lifestyle? I mean, what's the economy or the region have to offer? And also the types of organizations that advocate for those economic development systems are a little bit different as well. In Nebraska, since 2011, the Nebraska Department of Economic Development has 4 main type of programs for TBED. These are grants. The first 3 here for academic R&D grants for individuals that have ideas that need to be tested with researchers, a prototype grant, a federal SBI or matching grant. And by the way, all of these have to be matched by the company themselves. It's just not free money. And then the seed investment program, that's what Invest Nebraska manages. If we were to look at how this program, the Business Innovation Act, has been measured since its implementation back in 2012, we start to see this is a report that was done by the University of Nebraska-Lincoln Bureau of Business Research. And we start to see, as Mike mentioned, as the funding has been awarded through the BIA, through the Nebraska Department of Economic Development, for each $1 of state spending, it's generated $5.75 of private investment coming from angel investors, venture capitalists. We start to see the revenue generated also increasing from each $1 spent by the state is generating $9 of revenue. But really the key here is the number of direct jobs created. And Tolan will mention this for Company Cam, but 1,100 jobs have been created by these entrepreneurs and startups. But the average wage of these jobs is significantly higher at $67,000 a year compared to the state's average wage of $43,000. I just end it by looking at a picture's worth 1,000 words. And so when we talk about the different types of economic development, the picture to the left under traditional is the Facebook data center in Papillion, Nebraska. They filed an application to the Nebraska Department of Revenue for the typical tax incentives. It's a $600 million project. It's only going to create 30 jobs in the long term. That versus on the right here under TBED, you see the team of Quantified Egg, which is a egg tech company here in Lincoln, started by a young man named Vishal Singh. Vishal immigrated from India. His father was a minister, and they relocated to Custer County. But Vishal, for a period of time, worked for the university and started Quantified Egg back in 2014. And this is his team of 8 individuals. They sold last year, and what they do is they have an ear tag for cattle and determine cattle that are sick in feedlots. But they sold last year north of $30 million to a pharmaceutical company. And these are the only 8 employees that they have, which their employees came out pretty good with the sale. But remarkably, they had only revenues of about $600,000. And their knowledge base of what they developed and their intellectual property is what drove the business. And what's unique, again, when we talk about the entrepreneurial ecosystem and the culture is even though Vishal sold his company, he is now already thinking about the next company that he wants to go ahead and create in the next couple of years. And so we see these differences between the two approaches. But when we talk about technology-based economic development, it's really core to creating knowledge within the sector. And with that, Mike, I will.
Well, I tell you what, Dan, let's just do a little recap here. If you're just tuning in to watch what we're doing, we did have a little trouble getting Dan's slides up there, so we apologize for that. But you're watching a town hall, a virtual town hall to talk about economic development as it relates to using technology and creating jobs and opportunities. One of the things that we have to do tonight is to explain what that means in a way that everybody says, okay, I get it. And one of the things that we want you to know is that today, our economy every day is taking the ideas people have on how to solve problems using either hardware, things that you make in your shop, or software, things that you create on a computer to solve the problem and use that innovation or that invention to market it to the rest of the population. Ironically, agriculture has been doing this for over 150 years. There was a farmer somewhere in Nebraska that figured out that using these big sprinklers and watering the field and using irrigation would make more arid areas possible for farming. Companies like Lindsay Irrigation and so many more have employed literally thousands of people in one of our more traditional industries, agriculture. What's happened in the last 10 years is that the people that have these ideas have been making more money and creating more jobs than almost any other area of the economy in rural and urban areas. And tonight we're going to talk to a guy who grew up in North Platte, worked in banking, and now works for a technical startup in Lincoln called Company Cam. His name is Tullen Mabbutt, and Tullen is going to explain as simply as possible his story and what problem his company solved and how many jobs does it create. And if you are somebody that sits out there, you're watching this tonight and you're like, I know a guy or I know a gal that has more ideas than fingers and toes, that has different ideas on how to solve a number of problems. And maybe sometimes people think, oh, that's too far out there, or, whatnot. People like that are the ones that we have to find in our economy, and they are the ones that are creating a lot of the jobs. Tullen, can you take over and explain Company Cam, what it does, what you do, and what its future is?
Yes, thank you so much, Mike. And thanks again for having me here tonight. So Company Cam was founded in 2015 by Luke Hansen. Luke is the son of Mike Hansen, who started White Castle Roofing back in the 80s and has grown that to have multiple locations in our state, all the way from Grand Island to Omaha. They do both commercial and residential roofing. And Luke was really in the family business. He was looking around their operations, and in roofing especially, like Dan said earlier, a picture is worth 1,000 words. So when it comes to, who's going to get up on their roof and check the work that's being done by the roofers? I know I certainly am not. That's what I pay them for. So Luke saw this opportunity to capture the documentation that's in the field, mostly in pictures, for their roofing company, and put it in the cloud, where it's stored just like Google Photos or Amazon Photos, and it can be accessed by anybody in the company, no matter where they are. So we're really this communication tool for all contractors. We started in roofing, but now roofing only represents about 50% of our clients. We have customers all over the United States, a bunch in Australia, Canada, even some companies in the Middle East that use our app for documentation. So really we're global at this point, but started right here in Lincoln, Nebraska. And, I think one of the big pieces, so I was a banker. I supported entrepreneurs in that role through Union Bank and Trust Catalyst. And, Luke we don't want Luke writing a single line of code. He was the founder of this organization, but he has no idea about technology. He saw a problem in the market, which was their company was taking SD cards from digital cameras, running them to the home office, downloading them every night, organizing them into files. And he said, you know what, with smartphones, we can do this better. And through resources like Invest Nebraska and Motion, all of these things that are supported by the state, Luke was able to find the connections here in Lincoln to get the company off the ground. So fast forward to today.
Hey, Tullen, before you go
yes.
there, can I add this? Somebody may be listening and say, okay, why would you want photos of someone's roof when you're doing an estimate? And the reality is that as soon as you put those photos in a safe spot on the internet, the adjuster that gets the claim from the homeowner who's got roof damage can see suddenly and instantly, this is the damage on the roof. And yeah, it is bad enough that it's warranted. And no longer is it well, I've got these pictures and you don't have these pictures. The situation now is that all the adjusters have the pictures, all the homeowner has the pictures, and it has actually increased for a lot of homeowners the strength of their claim on roof damage because everything's been documented and everybody's got it. So in this case, when this company was started in 2015, taking pictures of roofs have helped roofing contractors make more money by being able to document the damage and having better evidence when it comes to working with insurance adjusters. Is that a good way to put it?
100%. And to simplify it, insurance companies hate us.
But roofing contractors love you.
Roofing contractors love us, and that's been a big part of our success. And we're also big in the home services, HVAC, and things like that. And it's really this internal communication tool where I can be a tech on a job site 30 miles away from the business owner. I can document what I'm doing and quickly have all of that information to the business owner and ask them questions about, hey, how do I fix this? I've never seen this problem. So it just provides this slew of contextual information to everybody in the organization and to the consumer themselves, because I don't know what my HVAC unit looks like, but if you walk me through it with pictures, I can easily understand what changed.
And Tolan, just so people know that if you're watching this, we're talking about how these entrepreneurial ideas are getting funded. So let's say you own a roofing company and you come up with an idea like taking pictures of the roof using your cell phone. You're in a roofing company, so you don't have extra money laying around just for research and development. What do you do then? Somebody that isn't technical, doesn't know how to write code, doesn't know how to make an app on their phone. What did he do? What did the entrepreneur do here to be able to take his idea in his business to a marketable product that had nothing to do with roofing per se?
Yeah, so we were really lucky in the early days to be able to access the prototype grant, which is a state grant, which, as Dan mentioned, you have to get matching investment. So Luke was able to convince some early investors to match that prototype grant and really start to get what they call the beta product, the version 1 of the product in place and into White Castle Roofing. So they actually started using it and started iterating off of the technology and saying, okay, well, this didn't work. Let's go back to the drawing board. And then from there, after the prototype was developed, some early customers, that really launched us into being able to raise capital to continue investing even more into the business and the technology.
So, Tolan, you left more of a traditional business to be part of a startup. Talk about how many jobs does something like this generate? What kind of employees are you looking for? And what's your perspective on the change in economic development as it relates to entrepreneurship?
Yeah, so really we're looking to attract other fellow entrepreneurial-minded individuals into our company. Right now, we just hit 80 employees, which is a huge benchmark for us, and we're hoping that we'll be over 100 by the end of the year. In 2020, we raised a $6 million round of capital, actually from outside investors in San Diego. And so that's really helping launch and continue to invest in our company so we can continue to grow as much as possible. I encourage anybody listening that is looking for a job in technology. You don't have to be technical. Right now, actually, we're hiring 6 inside sales positions. Our average salary in our company is $78,000. So pretty competitive wages for Nebraska. And we have a bunch of positions between support, customer success, sales, and then also a ton of technology roles as well.
All right, you just heard from Tellen Mabbitt. You've also heard from Dan Hoffman with Invest Nebraska about this effort in economic development to create opportunities from those that we live with. One of the great things about the changes with technology is that anyone with an idea that solves a problem using some kind of device or hardware or software with the right pairing of capital, and the state of Nebraska through Invest Nebraska has some available, can start a business. One of the things you have to know is that oftentimes there's a lot of these startups that start and they don't always work. And we'll talk about how often that happens and what it means. But next up, let's go to Andy Colvin, who is the city administrator and in charge of economic development for the city of Norfolk as well. Andy is with us, and I've asked him to do two things: talk about what the change in economic development has meant for somebody who works every day on it, and a success story of a town in rural Nebraska that has been able to recruit some of these companies to be inside its borders. Andy, welcome, and thank you for being here.
Thank you, Mike, and everybody listening. This is a really good opportunity to hear from everybody, and I enjoy hearing from everybody on this town hall here who's spoken so far, so I really appreciate that. I think with economic development and the changes that you see now versus what it was, I think it was touched on earlier in our conversation tonight that we used to recruit companies. We used to recruit big manufacturers. And while certainly I think that's true, and there's places for that today still, and we're still doing that, it has changed in that we're recruiting people. And, capturing that knowledge in the entrepreneurs is what I think our focus is maybe shifting to. I don't want to say everything is going that way, because we certainly have to make sure our current companies, our current industries are strong and that we have a place for everybody to grow. But certainly those entrepreneurs are going to be key to the future, particularly in the Midwest. And I think from an economic development standpoint in a community, if you're hitting all the points, you're basically creating that ecosystem. You're creating that place for those entrepreneurs, the families, the individuals that want to live in your community. You got to give them a reason to want to be there. Because they can really live anywhere now. And I think that's one of the big differences that I see going forward, is that people can be anywhere they want to. And as technology and as we move forward, you're going to see even more of that. So you got to give people a reason to want to be in your community. And so I think that's where your city and your economic development leaders come into play, is creating that environment. And so that's really the direction that we've taken here, and we've moved it towards, housing, creating a variety of housing opportunities for a variety of income levels. And then once we get that going, then we kind of just keep moving, and we have to shift. We have to evolve with what we're seeing. And certainly the Growing Together initiative has really given that opportunity for the community to come together and have that unified vision to decide what is it that we want to be. We've identified the problems. We've identified where our strengths are, what our weaknesses are. And I think that has been missing for a long time in communities, and perhaps communities haven't needed to do that in the past, but certainly now we do. And we need to look at those things. We need to really ask ourselves, what is it that we want to be, and who do we want to welcome to our community? And certainly that's everybody. We want, the diversity in business and industry is key. You want the diversity. You want all kinds of ideas to have a place here and businesses to grow. So I guess in a nutshell, that's how I would see the economic development area has changed. Certainly even in my career, I have seen it changed from recruiting industries to recruiting people. And I think that's exactly what we're doing right now.
And that's absolutely right. And Norfolk has had some success, and obviously all communities in Nebraska are working to support the entrepreneurs, not just in their backyard, but those that want to move here in starting businesses. And we talked earlier about a business that has moved to Norfolk or is in the process of moving to Norfolk that started kind of in a cornfield not far away. And it's an example of a business that used technology to solve a problem and now is continuing to grow in Norfolk.
Yeah, sure. And I really wish Jared Krunterod from Fieldwise was able to be here with us this evening. He was going to be, but unfortunately he wasn't able to make it. So Fieldwise approached us about 2 years ago, and it started with, and we had no idea who they were. They came to us and they wanted to have their business was growing. They ran out of room in Ewing, where they were headquartered and where they started. Just up the road from Norfolk. And it is a family company that really took your ag family, and they kind of merged through relationships and through the family growing. They brought in the technology aspect of it. And so they what Fieldwise does is specialize in agricultural telemetry, and in particular, pivot monitors, pump flow monitors, tank monitors, bin fan monitors, and also moisture probe readers and weather stations for farmers. And the unique thing about them is they're not tied to any manufacturer of a pivot or of a grain bin or any kind of other product. They're completely independent of that. And so they can offer much more, and they offer more support. It's a family company. And really, they've seen growth all over the United States, and they're even going international. And that's what really intrigued us as we sat down and spoke to them, is that they're helping to solve issues in New Zealand, in Australia, particularly in areas of the world where water is a very, very difficult thing to come by anymore, where they really need to conserve water around the world. And so that's where they're finding a lot of growth. And that's where they see their future, and certainly in the United States here as well, in the ag community. But really, when they sat down with us and we started finding out more about this company and the history of it and where they came from, I mean, it was really, really intriguing for us. And they've been with us the whole way. We've helped them decide, what is it that they want to see for their company? Where do they want to grow? How fast are they going to grow? What do they need to grow? What do their employees need? And as we're moving through this, they're moving their headquarters to Norfolk, simply because they want to be closer to some amenities. They want to have a little bit easier to get their shipping and receiving and get their products out to market. And I think being able to recruit their workforce that they need. Certainly Northeast Community College, they've identified as a big resource for them, for their employees, and Wayne State College as well. So I think having that, again, it's that community that you offer for these companies really lets them grow. And that's exactly what we've done for Fieldwise. And I would say we could do that for any company that would want to do something similar with just an idea.
Well, thank you very much. That's Norfolk City Administrator Andy Colvin, and we are certainly excited to have Fieldwise in this area. And I know between Ewing and Norfolk and everywhere in between, their employees are certainly the kind of jobs that this effort is intended to help create. I think it's important to note that, when I first started in the legislature, and I'm your host tonight, Mike Flood, and I'm back in the legislature as a state senator, it was always like we were trying to recruit people from outside of the area to come and bring their business to us. And what's changed in the past 10 years is that we're better off investing in us and growing the businesses from here, because the people looking to flow into Nebraska in today's economy often are doing it because there's a mix of different types of incentives. The people that start their businesses already in our area have grandmas and grandpas, dads and moms, brothers and sisters that live here, and they're likely to stay. Now there's the next person you're going to talk to is on my target list of getting to move back to Nebraska. He is Josh Ditrick. Josh is an Elkhorn Valley High School graduate. His dad and his uncle and families are farmers in Northeast Nebraska, and he grew up basically on the farm and getting a great education and taking classes at Northeast Community College before he graduated high school. And so he's in Boston right now. He left Elkhorn Valley Schools, went to MIT, ended up doing all sorts of inventive stuff. And so I went to Boston to go see what kind of jobs are we trying to create here? Why is Boston so successful? And so in my mind, before I went to Boston, I thought, well, I'm going to go out here and there's going to be like 20 guys and gals sitting behind computers making software. And I get out to Boston, I go into Josh's business, and what do I see? It's like walking into a machine shed on a farm. He's got a hoist, and he's got a lathe, and he's got all of these different tools that you would see on a farm. And it hit me. Farmers are innovators by nature, and he's making the parts that are solving problems, not just in agriculture, but in other people's businesses. Josh, thank you for being here tonight. And now, what year did you graduate from Elkhorn Valley High School?
2004, Mike.
Okay, well, take it off here and take it on here and share with people what it is that you do and what does it mean for people that live here. And I will also say this, I'm going to put this on the bottom of your screen. If you have questions for any of us, I'm going to put this email up right now. You can see this. You can send us those questions, and we'll take them here in a little bit. Josh, it's off. It's you.
Well, thanks again, Mike. And I realize now this is a large ploy to bring me back. So if you can just build me a nice home, and that'll be great. No, you're exactly right. I was fortunate enough to grow up on a farm just south of Tilden. Had a great family that embraced my curiosity as a kid, no matter how mischievous I might have been. From time to time, that was putting too large of an engine on too small of a go-kart and seeing how fast it would go. And but after moving out to the East Coast here, I found that the entrepreneurship community was a lot of people much like myself. And during my time at MIT, I became involved in a collegiate race car team, which is called Formula SAE, which is essentially teaching a startup in a box. They put you through the process of design, build, manufacture, and market, and then finally race a race car that you would do if you were a startup trying to develop a car that a middle-aged man would like to race with. And so what that did is that really honed my skills in tinkering and then pushed them into the field of engineering, which is what I studied at MIT. And within that, we developed a key set of skills that we were able to actually make real things, and the things that actually are good enough to, go down the racetrack, not just hack together things. And during my time in that program, we started realizing that there are other needs for this in the entrepreneurship community, where there are entrepreneurs with really good ideas, but not the fine skill sets or the equipment and resources to build their products out to a point where they can get that test proof of concept done to work appropriately and get that funding or do that investor pitch. And so as a result, that's what got me to start my business here in Boston. And that's exactly what we do. So we're essentially a hard tech startup advisory company where we help these early stage startups through their initial problems of development and connect them to the right people and get them from either a napkin sketch to a proof of concept that they can test, or from a proof of concept to an MVP that they may need to, do a demo for investors, or, to do a Kickstarter event, or maybe they're in a different stage to take them from something that's an MVP and move it on to something that's scalable for manufacturing.
That's great. Josh, could you give us an example of like businesses that you've worked with where somebody comes in and they say, hey, I've got this idea on how to fix this problem and build a product. I don't know where to go next. What are the products that you've made?
Sure, they're very wide range, Mike. We like to take about anything that that comes in the door, although there's certainly some ideas that aren't worth their time. But some of the most recent interesting ones actually relate to the COVID crisis that we're dealing with. One of them was called Biobot, and what they are is a group of ladies in urban planning and studies at MIT, and as well as the biology department, that partnered together to do what they call wastewater epidemiology. And basically what they ended up needing to do is sample wastewater from the sewage systems real time and collect these samples, send them to their lab through their unique process, and figure out, at the time they wanted to develop a process to understand how much opioids were in certain communities because it was relevant then, but they've since pivoted to real-time tracking of the coronavirus in wastewater. And so that's obviously a very unique challenge. How do you take very fine, refined technology like that's in the biological world and also partner that with the nitty-gritty, dirty details of sewage and collecting it from the city streets? And so they had some initial proof of concepts that showed promise, but what they needed was a hardened product that actually worked, because you can imagine the cost of some of these tests, when you have these very expensive machines like gas chromatography and HPLC machines to do these very expensive tests, you want to make sure that you got the collection that you thought you had. And failure is very expensive, especially when you have to open up a street manhole overnight to collect these samples. So we partnered with them to make their first generation device, which was a little suitcase box with batteries and an internet connection that would go down in the sewer, leave it for a week. It would take samples, and then they would pull it back out and run their analysis.
One of the last thing I want to talk to you about, Josh, and I think it's important. I have a hard time explaining sometimes to people what kind of jobs are we trying to create using technology, and why would anybody do that in rural Nebraska? And don't you have to go to a bigger town to do that? Don't you have to go to Boston or Dallas or San Jose or San Francisco? What kind of innovators do we have in Northeast Nebraska? You grew up in Tilden. Talk about what we have in our backyard.
Well, Mike, I would say that, like you mentioned earlier, that farmers are the original gangster of innovators. When you're out in the field, much like myself, Dad would say, go and fix this. And he'd be out in the middle of a cornfield, and there's a gearbox broken on an irrigation system, and you may not have the right tools to fix it, but by golly, you got to figure out a way to do it. And that kind of, deal with what you have to get the job done is key on the farm, and even more key in a startup. In a startup, I'm sure that Tellen and others know that you don't always have the right software program. You don't always have the right people, but you have to find a way to move the project forward and get to that next level where you are able to afford those resources.
Well, that's exactly what I've been hearing for the last 2 years, and it's nice to have somebody that's in that business explain it. Something I'll tell you, I got a real education in this new kind of economic development. I was asked to be on the board of Invest Nebraska, and to be honest, when I started, there would be, I don't know, maybe 8 to 10 businesses, and each one would get $50,000 or $100,000, and I thought it was crazy. I thought, what are we doing? We're handing out money like candy to these different businesses. And to be honest with you, and this is the part that's going to shock you, 8.5 of 10 of those companies failed. But the 1.5 businesses that didn't fail created so much value that that Invest Nebraska is cash positive. And what happens when a business fails, when you grow up in a conservative part of the state and you hear about a business failing, it's almost like a personal failure. It's like a lack of being too conservative. It's all of these things that you're conditioned to think. And the reality is, it's so common that we want our young people around businesses, whether they succeed or fail. We want them watching over the shoulder of somebody that's trying to start a business. Because, yeah, maybe that business does fail, but some young lady from Pierce was in there for 6 months trying to make it work, and the market didn't take. But out of that experience unlocked an entire new perspective on a startup community that young lady from Pierce or that person from Pierce will take with them the rest of their life and hopefully start businesses. And I think it's important to note that entrepreneurs aren't 22-year-olds. Oftentimes, entrepreneurs are 35-year-olds. They're 45-year-olds. They're people that are in their community, in their job. They're solving problems, and they are coming up with products that solve problems. And if we could get them sat in a room and give them the money that they need to start if they have a business plan, and we could take those chances in places like Norfolk and Northeast Nebraska, we will be miles ahead. And we'll be relying on the people that live here instead of trying to convince somebody to move their business from Nashville to Norfolk, which we all know is almost impossible on a lot of fronts for different reasons. None of which we would embrace or agree with. But let's now transition to Dr. Leah Barrett. Dr. Barrett is the president at Northeast Community College. She has been in that role for over 1 year. She came to us from Sheridan, Wyoming, where she was at a community college there. And Northeast is part of the Growing Together effort, and they are leading the way, and they are interested in helping people do what Josh Ditrick does and providing the space to be creative and to create the solutions that solve the problems. Dr. Barrett?
Yes, thanks, Mike. And it's kind of fun to play cleanup because I got to listen to all this great content and add to what I was going to say about the role of the community college in Nebraska. One of our important pieces is to support applied research. So what is applied research? It's partnering with businesses to identify practical applications for products. In essence, it's providing those practical solutions to specific business problems. So the community college space, the physical space, especially at Northeast, allows us to do that. We have a 500-acre operating farm with several planted fields, grazing for 50 cow-calf pairs, and additional opportunities in the multiple windbreaks and the adjacencies to our new community walking and bike trail. In 2020, we worked with 12 businesses and 3 federal and state agencies on 19 projects on our college farm. We have 300 students in our agriculture program and about 60 students in our information technology program. We have students in the math and sciences and pre-engineering, all of them utilizing the space on our farm to look at different projects and work with organizations and businesses. We work with the USDA. We work with SARA, the Sustainable Agriculture Research and Education Program, which is farmer-driven innovation grants that help farmers look at different ways of doing things. We also work with the National Resource Conservation Service. Our farm, in conjunction with all of our other applied tech programs, we're really just a physically large makerspace. We have CNC machines, welding bays, auto body and auto tech labs, mechanized and precision ag labs, 3D printers, electrical, mechanical, and building construction equipment. Our faculty are so excited about urban farming, diversified ag, the intersections between wind, battery, and solar, and the intersections between cybersecurity and ag. And there's been a lot of talk about the fintech industry and cryptocurrency. Our faculty want opportunities to expand our applied research projects with businesses and education partners. We continue to explore grant opportunities and partnerships with businesses and economic development entities, as well as our colleagues at University of Nebraska in both Omaha and Lincoln, and our colleagues at Wayne State. Our faculty and our students love to partner with entrepreneurs to try a new product or help to analyze data. In summary, I want to make sure you know we're changing how we do things at Northeast. We've reorganized our academic divisions, and we're excited to announce just last week, we shared with our faculty we're going to have a new academic division that's called Science, Technology, Agriculture, and Math. So we're going to be STAM, not STEM. We do some pre-engineering, but that middle letter for us is agriculture. We'll be hiring a new dean and asking 2 of our faculty to serve as program directors, one for information technology and one for ag. This will allow that singular contact for businesses and entrepreneurs to partner with the college to test products, to explore practical applications, and explore mutually beneficial private and public grants. We're focused in the ag tech space and supporting the economic development endeavors and creating the builders of tomorrow.
Thank you very much. That's Dr. Leah Barrett, who is the president of Northeast Community College. We have time for a question or two if they make their way to us here. I just want to reintroduce everybody real quick and tell you what we're doing. Tonight's virtual town hall is to explain the economic development opportunities that we see for the future of our area. And our focus is on finding those entrepreneurs. And let's say somebody's not an entrepreneur, but they're good with IT, or they're good with fixing problems, or they come off the farm or one of our cities, and they want a good job here. They have opportunities too. The more businesses that we can get started in this part of the state, the more jobs we're going to have at a better wage, hopefully, for those folks to stay. And so if you're watching tonight, we want you to know that we're working on it. We're one of the first areas of Nebraska to be organized like this. And we hope that we can work in partnership, not only with Lincoln and Omaha, but the North Platts and Columbuses and Grand Islands and all over the state, the regions of these different communities. There's no reason one of these businesses can't be in Pierce or in Wayne or in Bloomfield. If there's a startup and they want to be in any of our communities, we want to make them successful. And so we're going to be talking a lot about this. The main reason for tonight is just to make sure that we are doing our part to let you know what we're doing and hopefully answer some questions. Tonight, I want to thank our roundtable of guests. We have Dan Hoffman. He's the president of Invest Nebraska. This effort is partnering with us in Northeast Nebraska. Dan, nice to have you tonight. All right. We also have with us Tullen Mabott. Tullen is from North Platte. He's in Lincoln now. He's with a startup as CFO. Tullen, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mike.
Andy Colvin is the city administrator for the city of Norfolk. Andy, thank you for being on tonight.
Thank you, Mike.
Josh Ditrick, you just heard from him. He's in Boston and from Tilden. Thank you. We appreciate it.
Thanks, Mike.
Here we did get a question here before we introduce Leah. The question is, why would companies be motivated to invest and grow their businesses in Northeast Nebraska when Lincoln and Omaha are a few hours away and offer far more business opportunities and resources? I love that question because I honestly, when you hear about this, I'd have the same question if I didn't have the benefit of a couple years. The reality is that we do have the resources and we do have the access to at-risk capital that they have in Omaha and Lincoln. In fact, I think you can get more done in Northeast Nebraska than almost anywhere. That's why I run my business out of Norfolk. I get the best people. I get people that are honest and show up for work. They will drive through a snowstorm to get there any day of the week. And more than anything, we're creating jobs for people that have the strongest motivation to be close to Northeast Nebraska, and that's grandma and grandpa to their children. And if we can create these jobs and lure back the gold that has left our area and the gold that lives in our area, the kind of workers that anywhere else in America would die to have, I think we've got something better than any other area of the state. Dr. Leah Barrett, thank you very much for being on. We appreciate having you. We're getting close to 8 o'clock. I appreciated that question. And we hope that if you do have questions, you'll send them back to us. You're watching a special presentation of the Growing Together effort, sponsored and connected to the Exarban Foundation. For all of our guests on this Sunday night, Thank you for joining our virtual town hall. Please list your questions at our Facebook website or on the email that you see below on your screen. It's 8 o'clock Central, 7 o'clock Mountain. It is time for this virtual town hall to end. We wish you the best and have a good week.